is Debra V. Wilson. It is Sunday. It's the 2nd of September 2018. The time is 1400 hours and 55 minutes, and that's GMT. I am in England. I spent a couple of days, Thursday and Friday, and part of Saturday in London, England. What I would like to talk about very briefly is some of the people I bumped into, and some of the people in particular I bumped into is the Inclusive Muslim Initiative. It's a very welcoming mosque, and it is now my mosque home here in the United Kingdom. I'm going to try not to tear up. I'm already going. I spent a lot of time walking around a city that means so much to me, and reconnecting with people. And I have a horrific sense of direction. It's actually quite easy to get to the mosque. It is really easy. At the Tube gave me the Tube London Underground Tube employees. I guess it would be London Transit employees, gave me brilliant directions. That doesn't really work because I got really confused and it turned around. I ended up going to some establishment twice, but people, all kinds of people helped me. Just so many people on the street helped me. There was a homeless man that was on the streets, sitting on the streets with a cup begging for money. That's what he was doing for his sustenance. And he left his post, where he was making his money, and he left his cup of money to go get help for me, because I said, you left your money, and I picked up his cup and held it for him. And oh my God, I went into a pub, a sports bar, I think it was, and asked for help. And it's difficult to ask for a sense of direction when you ask for directions when you have no sense of direction. And I had the information, but it still didn't help. And so I asked them if they had Wi-Fi, and they said yes. At lunch hour, they let me sit at a table and work on the Wi-Fi, and to figure it out. It didn't do any good. So I asked for help, and while they were working, they took the time to map it themselves and then give me directions. Then at the mosque, I go to a very embracing and inclusive mosque in Toronto, the Toronto Unity Mosque, and that's my mosque home in Canada. And I'm in the UK now, and yeah, it was very a good space to be in. It was just a wonderful space to be in. I'm jumping around a bit because I don't want to overshare, but I also want to just very briefly talk about anyway, best place on earth, London. I am biased. And chronologically I'm jumping around as well. So at one point in the evening, before I went back to my accommodations, I wanted to pick up something for dinner at Waitrose. That's my favorite place to shop. Just personal, no paid promotion here. And I was lost. I think that's a given. So I was in the tube station, and I saw these young men in suit pants, crisp white shirts, and badges. Didn't really look like the uniform of the London Underground, but with the badges, I went and asked if they worked for the London Underground, and they said no. I've already said it, I'm African American, and they were white, and the one I was talking to had a North American accent, and so he said, no, we we don't, but maybe we can help you anyway. And I said, I'm looking for the nearest Waitrose. And so he starts talking. He said, well, I can help you with that. And he took out his phone and found a Waitrose for me. But in any case, I asked, I said, where are you from? And he said, from Canada. And I said, I'm from Winnipeg. I said I was living in Winnipeg. And I said, I'm originally from the States, but I was living in Winnipeg. And he goes, no way, I'm from Alberta. They are Latter-day Saints. And two other young boys, they were all in their 20s, they looked like, came over and they joined in and gave me directions. I had numerous conversations with people in establishments and just walking up and down the street. You can do that in London. People are just engaged. You can engage with them in conversation. Londoners have the most incredible sense of humor. I love the sarcasm. Because I'm traveling around the UK, exploring things and options and ways in which I can help. So even on the National Express, again, not a paid endorsement, bus ride, the bus drivers going and coming, I don't know how you can't be chatty here. I spend so much time. Always, actually, the greatest irony is, as much as I love London, I always loved when I went back to my hotel or flat by myself, because you talk to so many people. Well, I do. I love just engaging people in conversations, and they love to talk. They love to talk about things that are really significant, current affairs, about the best place to get chips and the best place to go to the park. So when I was checking into my accommodations, they have all these student dorms that are free during the winter, summer, sorry. And the universities can make money that way. I will always be an accountant. So I went, that's where I stayed, in one of these accommodations, university accommodations. So anyway, there was a queue. First of all, you had to wait. The check-in was a specific time. It's not like a larger hotel where you can perpetually, just literally check in. You may not be able to go to your room at that time, but literally this situation, you had to wait for a specific time to actually check in, so we're all waiting. Well, anyway, so the first thing I did, and most of the young people working behind the counter were people of color. The majority of them were female, young women of African descent, and there was an Asian young man and a couple of white men, boys, and these were all young people, college, university age students. So anyway, it was a young black, I'm from America, born in Chicago, but my parents were from Mississippi, so when I say girl and boy, I'm talking about adults, but they're significantly younger than me. So it was a young black girl behind the counter, and I didn't know about the start time to actually start the process of checking in. I know you often have to wait to go to your room, so I asked if this was the place to check in, and she said, no ma'am, and she was really, really nervous. She said, no ma'am. Voice got low, and I said, why are you so nervous? I said, what do you think I was going to do? And I said, should I now have a scene, give into a scene and put on a scene for you? And she started laughing. And so then when the actual check-in time happened, I got another black girl, and so she was asking me about the reference number, and I said, I don't remember. And she said, oh, could you, I said I could go on my iPad and look it up. She said, if you don't mind, madam. So she verified my surname again, Wilson, and then first name, Debra, and then when I made the booking, and and she said, oh, I found it. And I said, oh, good, because I was about to start the old lady tears. And she said, oh, you're going to be like that. And she had this wonderful smile on her face. I said, I don't care. If it would get the right response out of you, the old lady tears would have just started flowing. And she said, oh, ma'am, you don't have to do that. She said, ma'am, you don't have to do that. And we were both laughing. There was more in the discourse with this young lady. It was so refreshing and so wonderful, and that's London. even in the face of the numerous challenges she has, you can look for the negative anywhere. London, as well as the entire United Kingdom, they have some quite significant challenges in several areas that are very important for any nation. But the people are still Londoners. I never laugh so much as like when I'm in London. The laughing, the joking, the sarcasm is just fabulous. And then the diversity. For me, London has always been a place that I spiritually recharge. That's right, London. Because the way in which I construct God, we are all connected. We're all connected everywhere. And it's how we understand that connection and how you define that connection. So for me, I define it through a religious perspective. And I define it through the lens of Islam and Catholicism, that we are connected to each other through the divine. And because I do define, in part as Muslim, there's one God for me, and so we all connect that way, but we're all connected. And there's nowhere that I see that connection and all the humanity that is so diverse than in London, England. So I was like really nervous. This is stream of consciousness, in my opinion, not particularly academic, about all these things about London, and she has challenges. There are big ones, some big ones, and but I feel like if you don't have a solution, don't sit at the table. You have a right to voice your disappointment, disdain, disgust, particularly if you live in the UK, with what's happening. But if you don't wish to involve yourself in a way to constructively engage and help, don't try to get a seat at the table. It's really no point. There's an expression that's very common in older African Americans in Chicago and elsewhere, but I'm from Chicago. I can do bad all by myself. So, yeah, so I'm going to start crying. It was good to be back in London. It was good to see people. It was good to, yeah. Anyway, I still have another podcast that about working, doing research and activism. I think, since this is my opinion, I'm going to go for it. So, I've been an Anglophile for years and years and years, and I've been through a lot with this country. That's the United Kingdom, and I'm not ready to let her go. It's not possible for me to do that. And because I grew up on the south side of Chicago, which was next door to Woodlawn, it was next door to Hyde Park, I had the good fortune to befriend and be befriended by a myriad of Jewish Americans. And because of London, England, I got a chance to meet some Israelis that led me to travel to Israel. I have loads of things I'd like to do in Israel. So it's getting the balance right, and there's loads of research. I'm looking forward, and I'm very happy about that. So, I have a podcast I need to work on about Israel's security modeling, national security modeling. So I'll be focusing on the IDF, the Shabak, and the Mossad, and then the security model in here in the United Kingdom, and I'll be focusing on a special branch of SO15 and MI5 and MI6, and that's a good podcast for me to do because it will, I think, be a place for me to a launching place for the activism and research and engagement I want with both countries. So I think it will be complex and challenging for me, and for maybe for some people in both countries, but if it's not complex, it's not worthwhile. So in any case, there's that. And then my 3 countries remain: Canada, Israel, and the UK. But I need to do this podcast for a lot of reasons. It's to do my launching off, and then to give voice. So this is Debra V. Wilson. I made it through this podcast without actually crying. That's another reason why I don't do a video, but I need to work on that as well. Anyway, this is Debra V. Wilson. Thank you.